Okay, we are live.
Hello. Who's going to introduce to this conversation?
Go ahead if you want to.
Okay. Well, welcome to Freedom Warrior Conversations. Today is our 49th conversation, and today we are talking about the pillar. It used to be a pillar. We used to talk about pillars of sovereignty. The pillar of food sovereignty and the pillar of land sovereignty. What is food and land sovereignty? These are what I like about the word pillars is it's like to have a building stand up, you need to have the pillars. You can't have one that's missing, right? So it's not like an optional thing. And this is what you're probably gonna explain very well to people watching here, is that you can't really expect to have a life of freedom. You can't really expect to have a life of permaculture, a life of coming back to the earth, if you are either on the food side still depending greatly or mostly on store-bought food and industrial food, and you're not seeking to be self-sufficient food-wise. And on the other side, you can't do that if you're still following the models of land purchasing and buying and land division and parcel type of land model. So we'll get really deep into this, and I think it's one of the greatest subjects we can speak about. I have lots to share, but I want to know what Ingrid has ready for us. So how are you doing, Ingrid?
I am doing wonderful. So, yeah, we used to speak of them as pillars and sovereignty. I still speak of them as pillars because living systems, and I just saw this picture the other day, living systems are living community networks that are the web of life, are self-organizing and self-regulating. And I saw this picture of an ancient civilization with monolithic stones like the Stonehenge. However, it seemed like the stones were hollow and they were lit up from the inside. And that's kind of the picture I like to see, is these pillars as lights that are guiding our way, that are shedding light on our path of becoming self-regulating, self-organizing community networks that are living once again, okay, as opposed to the dead earth hologram system we live in.
Right.
So yes, I still call them pillars. The only word I'm shifting to is from sovereignty is maybe to just self-governance and self-regulation.
Okay.
So that we understand better. So to start with, I saw a person from the Freedom Cells actually share this on YouTube, on Facebook the other day. It says Maine town declares food sovereignty. I was thinking, oh wow, that's absolutely wonderful. There's a whole town in Maine that is totally self-sufficient on food, right? Nope, it goes to say Sedgwick, Maine has done what no other town in the United States has done. The town unanimously passed an ordinance giving its citizens the right to produce, process, sell, purchase, and consume local foods of their choosing. Excuse me? That, if we don't see the total incongruency in that, the town, the title reads that they declared their sovereignty. No, they didn't declare sovereignty. Sovereignty means that you're actually producing, eating,
right,
being local, right? That means you're
Self-sufficient.
self-sufficient. That's what sovereignty means, is you're self-governed, you're self-regulated. No, this town, and remember from our talk about corporations that are dead entities. So this town that is a dead entity all of a sudden gives its citizens the rights they already had. And I put on, my reply was, this is not a good thing.
Well, it's
Without a
just
doubt, this-
another media craze, another nothing made into something.
Right. And so, but here are my fellow Earth travelers who I'm thinking that this is absolutely amazing, a step in the right direction. And it's like, are you kidding me?
Right.
You and I have the inherent right to grow. We were given that with our birth on this earth, with our creation into human form on this earth, to grow our own food and receive all we can from Mother Earth for our health, comfort, and well-being that she offers so freely. We do not need a dead corporate entity giving us that right. And this segues right into this, the self-governance. You don't need a dead entity. That's a fictitious thing on paper only to tell you that you can do this. You can do this by yourself. And so this is what is
and it makes me think that they know that we might be looking into self-governance and self-regulation, so they're just going to take advantage of that. It's like it's the same this artificial intelligence shopping thing where, oh, people are searching for this, they want this, so let's give them that. So we're probably going to see lots of governments or towns or stores claiming things like this, but it's just to make people think they're getting what they want and just getting sold empty space and plastic.
Without realizing that they
then
no
what they need to realize is nobody is going to do stuff for you. You have to do it yourself. That's the that's what nobody wants to really see,
Hey, okay.
They expect some government or something to do it for them. Right.
Well, that's exactly right. That's what we don't understand. And this is what was so frustrating about this, is the people the person that posted this is a person in the Tulsa Freedom Cell. And then when I said, this person posted it as a wonderful thing. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not wonderful, because you were given that right inherently. When did you agree to give up that right?
No.
Because that's on you. That's not on me. I never gave up that right. And I know what is in one is in the all. And that's what really gets me hot under the collar, so to speak, about this, is that my fellow human Earth travelers are so willing to say, oh, now we have the town's blessing. We don't need the town's blessing. This is part of self-governance, is understanding that we don't need any government's blessing to do anything that is inherently ours to do.
Yeah.
So what's the importance of food sovereignty? It's, well, if we're not relying on third-party sources, they can't control us. Can't put it any more simply than that, right?
Yeah, and may I say that this modern world makes us think that we need so many things, and life is also complex, but it really comes down to food. I mean, that's the only real thing you actually need. I mean, but then when you think about being self-sufficient food-wise, then that's you realize, and I need to access to land, I need access to water. Then comes all the other stuff, right?
Right. Well, yeah.
And then you realize
So,
how trapped you are by the city, by the urban model, and how, you know, how far away from the earth that is. You know, earth naturally is, there you go. There's a space, grow your stuff. There's the water, there's the rain, there's the rivers. It's not that difficult. But then it is difficult in a city because you don't have land, you don't have water, you don't have all that stuff.
right. Shoot, what happened here? Why is my Zoom meeting going crazy?
What's happening?
There we go. That's, well, okay, there we go. Okay, so let's, I'm going to this comment from, we get it from Mark Passio about licenses and permits. So okay. So licenses and permits are claims that a group of people who call themselves, quotes, government, have been given the, quote, right to prevent others from exercising specific behaviors, even if the behaviors cause no harm to anyone else, unless those others petition, beg, or pay the government for permission to be allowed to exercise those behaviors. This amounts to the claim that your rights are merely privileges that may be granted or taken away by the government based on their preference or discretion. This equals slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And so while this is in reference to licenses and permits, this is this is the same. I'm making this in reference to this comment about this town, this Facebook post about the town of Maine this town in Maine declares food sovereignty because they've given, as a government, their citizens the right. So their citizens, basically, they just claim that their citizens are all their slaves.
Yeah, I mean,
this is what's so disturbing.
To say this, but yet so difficult to get it in you and really realize that, you know, that this is real, that the governments are claiming this, that this is, and that this is not new. And with that, we're convinced, or normal people are convinced this is what has to exist so that there's order in the world. Yet, well, it is the chaos.
So it's interesting. I just started watching a video today, and I stopped it because I needed to pay more attention, and then I got busy with something else. So this man is talking, and I'll send you the link. This man is talking about the secrets of the slave state, and he talks about how way back in time when slavery started on the shores of America, the plantation owner decided he owned this large piece of property that needed to be worked, and he didn't want to work it because he's a nobleman, right? So he needs someone to work it for him. So he collects these people who he considers less than himself, which were blacks at the time, or Indians. And then he decides that one of them needs to be punished as a show of force. And so he constructs the reason, a minor infraction or something. The young black man or Indian man might not have done anything to piss off the owner. And the owner the landholder just decided just focused on this person, and in public, severely punished, even to the point of death. So now the women, because this person had a mother, this young black Indian man or woman had a mother, laid on the mother's horror and trauma to be, yes, massa, Yes, Masha, we'll do. So by the time the next generation comes along, they don't even know they're slaves because they've never been offered anything else. And it's the same with us. So these people that posted this, we found them in the freedomcells.org, the website, right? They think they're working for freedom, but yet they're posting things, slavery things, as saying, oh my God, we're finally free because towns are giving us freedom. Towns don't have any right to give us freedom because towns, why are you allowing yourself to be enslaved by a town that's a dead fictitious entity?
Right.
But this is our mindset. We've been violated from the beginning to be forced into control. And as you said in your short video that you put on, that you shared on Vimeo and other places, if we continue to collude, we continue to be slaves. And that's the simple fact. So where do we start? What's the first way to start? Taking one of the basic ways is this food sovereignty or food self-regulation, food self-organization, growing our own food, everything. And I don't mean just tomatoes and peppers and squash and then buying the rest.
Lots of grain.
Okay. So there's a restoration agriculturist in Wisconsin, Mark Shepard, who says that every civilization who depended on their annual crops for survival has failed. So annual crops, so wheat to make bread with, right? We need the flour, we need wheat for the flour to make bread. But if we depend on the annual crops, like currently Oklahoma's in a severe drought, there's probably not any wheat coming out of Oklahoma. Corn is an annual crop. There's probably not any corn coming out of Texas or Oklahoma this year because we're in such a severe drought. So what can we do to not, how can we get away from annual crops? I'm not saying we need to totally shun annual crops, but we need a balance. So there's chestnuts. Chestnuts are a yearly thing from a tree, right? Chestnuts can be made into flour and can replace corn flour in anything. So we think that we've grown so accustomed to the comfort of these conveniences of buying flour, buying sugar. We can make our own sugar. We can make, we have hives of bees for honey, make our own sugar.
Yeah, there's so many solutions.
Right,
and the more you get into being self-sufficient, the better your diet gets, because if you're depending on the flour and the sugar, then you're probably not having the best diet ever. Right.
And yeah, it's just, people, I'm bringing this up because there's so many people that say I grow my own garden, so I'm self-governed in this. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
Does your garden replace how much do you still spend on groceries? Do you go to the grocery store for meat?
Right. Meat is a big thing. Proteins, nobody thinks about that.
Right. And I have a plethora of healthy meat here nobody wants to partake of. In fact, the last person I gave some of my grass-fed beef to, she let it just sit and go and rot without ever using it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was that? Why?
Because she didn't really give a shit, I guess. So this is what I'm focusing on. We're so accustomed, we're so brainwashed into, well, I can just go to the supermarket and get it, that I don't value the fact that an acquaintance of mine just brought me $100 worth of beef. Right? To cook, that this will save me money. Now for a few meals, I'm getting more towards food sovereignty because I just got beef directly from a farm.
Yeah. When you start going on this road of getting out of the supermarket model, that requires you to really grow in how much you care about things. So you have to start caring about when food rots, about what you eat when, how do you best utilize. Because if you're in this mindset, oh, I don't care if this goes bad, I can just buy more. I can just buy another thing. Everything's solved by buying. And I see this everywhere. I see this with my mom. I see that's their ultimate solution. I can just buy something. I can just buy it. But wait, that's not the point. The point is that you bought this whole bunch of food, and now it's that nobody's gonna eat, because why did you buy so much of that? And because you don't plan ahead what you're gonna cook. You just buy, you just have this, oh, I gotta buy a whole bunch of carrots. Do we really eat that many carrots? No, we don't. So they all go bad. 50% of them go bad. Oh, but I gotta have carrots. But you're not cooking all those carrots. Why do you buy so many carrots? But they don't care. It's like they don't care.
Well, and this is a problem. The vast majority of our farms are big industrial farms, and so as you've seen, I've sent you pictures of, wow, hey, thanks to Mexico, my pigs have days upon days worth of tomatoes to eat. Right?
That's the good thing about having
into,
to recycle with them.
This is just one small food bank that I get food from. Last week it was 500 pounds of cabbage. Apparently nobody likes cabbage that well, so why are we freaking growing that much cabbage? Well, because that's what my farm does. I have this niche farm that grows so many acres of cabbage, and then I have to do so many acres of carrots, and then we just don't. My laptop's going crazy.
I see you fine. That there's no problem here.
Okay, it's totally on my end then. So we don't understand that we've got to get away from the industrial and commercialization of it, and we've got to understand also that
this is really interesting, because people are used to not thinking, right? Not being aware, not being conscious of what they buy, how much they buy, what they're gonna cook. They don't plan ahead. They're used to, it's like, and this is also because of the job, right? Because their life is just like complaining or suffering the job. So your mind is all its attention is going on kind of like complaining about how much you hate your job and how much you hate this life, and you're not paying attention to the simple things, to having love for cooking, to having a love for organizing your kitchen and having it, knowing how much what you have, what's going to go bad, how do you administer things in a way that nothing goes bad, that you make the best use of things. To me, that's one of the greatest tricks of cooking. I'll give you one of the big tricks of cooking is you have something that's going to go bad, right? So you have to cook with that. But it's like, let's say you have a whole bunch of onions, right? It's like, what do you do with a whole bunch of onions? Hey, the French figured it out. Soup à l'oignon, onion soup. There you go. Some of the best dishes come out of this scarcity thing. You don't have a lot of things, so you're looking to eat something, and whatever you have, you cook that, and there's how you make up a new dish. But that turns on your creativity. That requires you to just bring up your love, bring up your care for things, and that's all part of of getting out of the job. But you have to think about getting out of the job. If you're just suffering the job, it's
well, and then, well, beyond that, to go into food sovereignty means that, you know, it used to be that in the fall was butcher time, and half everybody in the neighborhood got together and brought their hogs together, or their cattle or whatever, and they butchered, and they processed all the meat together, and then they knew they were set. They salt brined their pork, they did whatever to preserve it for the entire winter, because their grocery store was their root cellar or their attic. And we don't do that anymore, because we think we're so in this mindset of, well, I can just go to the store and buy it. I don't need to preserve it. Why, you know, and this is, we've seen with COVID in America that, you know, freezers have gone ridiculously expensive because people all of a sudden started this, but then they forget. Like I took this acquaintance $100 worth of grass-fed beef, and she couldn't be bothered to take it home and put it in her freezer, because God forbid she should ever look in her freezer. Here's the other thing. God forbid she should ever look in her freezer for food instead of just going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Right? Or look in the cabinet for canned meat, or, you know, and that takes a lot of work, but it's what gets you self-sufficient. It's what keeps you from relying on an outside source to provide you with food.
Yeah.
And we have to understand that because of our consumption, the meat industry uses almost half of the land on Earth. And to produce a pound of industrial beef requires approximately 2,500 gallons of water.
Yeah.
And approximately 80% of the antibiotics produced in the United States are used in the meat industry. So just because you don't use antibiotics for yourself doesn't mean you're not getting them in your food.
Yeah.
So food sovereignty, food self-governance allows us the opportunity to distribute food more evenly and establish food justice in our areas, where everyone has access to food, has access to wonderful meals, regardless of race, class, religion, ethnicity, ability, or any other label we put on them, any other classification. So that's one of our pillars at our Living Self-Governance Process Universitas and self-governance process farm villages, is that we will be food sovereign. We will get to the point with building this community network of villages that we don't need to go to the grocery store. We can go to each other's villages to get what we don't grow in our own village.
Yeah. Right. But that makes me want to go into the land, because
Yeah.
I for example visited the Freedom Cell here in the city of Jalapa, Mexico. There's one of those freedom cells, and not just with them, but even with other people that are probably haven't heard about the freedom cells, but have been involved with somehow trying to be self-sufficient, or trying to be sustainable, or trying to be some, you know, trying to have some consciousness about this, but still being very trapped in by the modern mindset. And I think one of the reasons is because of just pragmatism, right? Of especially with land. And I always give the example of this village of this community in Argentina, northern Argentina, where they successfully created a community. They didn't buy the land. They got this large territory it was a land that was held by the church, and they made a contract with the church so that they could use the land. And they started using the land, and they, out of all the, eco villages or communities I see around, where they're just mostly focusing on, it's just like an image, right? They're really not self-sufficient. And if they are, they're very tied into the money model, trying to make money out. Like there's one here that's old, this ranch, which is self-sufficient. They really do produce all the grains, all the vegetables, they have lots of animals, and they're all even energy sufficient. They have, which I think it's crap, but they have solar panels. But they're trying, but then they're very tied into the money still, and so many other things. When the pandemic hit, you would see that some of them using masks because their minds are trapped by that. And these other people, that are here in this town trying to get this other community started. When I told them, hey, why don't you see the example of the Argentinians? They're the only ones I know of that they produce more than they consume of food. And they go and they give it away to nearby communities. They're feeding people nearby because they're so efficient, and they're so, like, they got that right. They're not limited on the land. They have plenty of land, right, to work with. So they're not, and they're not paying for the land, because if they wouldn't need to pay for that, you'd be drowning in debt and trying to pay for that. So it just doesn't work.
Let's segue into this. So to land sovereignty, which totally includes water and mineral sovereignty, also is so these people in Argentina went to the church who had enclosed land and said, let us use your enclosed land. So now we're living in enclosed land, and we're only going to allow so many people in our enclosed land. So while they're still sharing, they're still participating in the enclosure of land.
Right. No, I have them as a good example. They're not, I don't see anything wrong with it.
I'm not saying, I'm just using this to segue into this. So let's talk about the enclosure movement. Where did the church get the right? We talk about purchasing and buying and selling land nonstop. And then we talk about human trafficking, and it's one and the same. We have to understand that Mother Earth is our mother. So if we're trafficking in her, of course, we're going to traffic in our women and children and boys and girls.
Yeah.
And men. So where did the enclosure movement start? And what is it? It's the process that was used to end traditional inherent rights of people living on the land and providing for themselves. And it's historically been accompanied by forced resistance and bloodshed, and referred to as the most controversial areas of agriculture and economic history, starting in England. And it was started in the late 18th and 19th centuries to take land that had been formerly owned in common by all the members of a village, and all indigenous people, all people knowing they are connected to the land, know that you cannot own the land. They just, each tribal nation had their area that they were keepers of, that they interacted with, that they worked. And each tribe knew each other tribe's area. So the enclosure movement comes in and says, we need to change this to privately owned land because we're better than you, we're more noble than you. And we need you as our slaves to work for us, right? So it started because the nobles, the rich people, needed to make more for themselves. So they enclosed the land. Now, the ancients, they knew how to lay hedges, and they enclosed. So they enclosed land for themselves because they had cattle. They had their own animals that they needed to keep in, and they always left a gate in their hedges so that it was that land was available to anyone who wanted to walk through, who wanted to pass through. It was just common courtesy and respect that when you went through the gate, you closed it because there might be animals grazing in there that might get out. So along comes the industrial, commercial, and agricultural revolution, and starts enclosing land with all these wealthy landowners that we need to look up to, right? Because they're so wealthy, they can purchase something that they don't even have a right to purchase. And now they ripped out these hedges because these 800-year-old hedges, because now that might not enclose the area of land I purchased. And it also means that it doesn't make me money, because if I make you put a fencing system on it of barbed wire fencing or wire fencing, now you have to replace that every 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
Every 10 years, right? So this started in 1542. Henry VIII gave his friend Sir William Herbert a gift: the buildings and lands of a dissolved monastery, Wilton Abbey. He didn't need farmland, so he had the buildings torn down and expelled the monastery's tenants and physically destroyed an entire village. In their place, he built a large mansion for himself only, and fenced off the surrounding lands as a private park for hunting. Does this sound familiar? It sounds very familiar in the US. So in 1549, 7 years later, the people that had once been able to farm that and make their living and their self-sustenance and be self-regulated off that land started tearing down his fences, and it caused a lot of bloodshed because he wanted his own mansion for himself and his own private park for him and his exclusive friends, and be damned the rest of the population who weren't as wealthy as he were, so they couldn't enclose their own land, and now they were forced into the cities and became homeless. So homelessness isn't new, and slavery isn't new. We all participated in it every day. And so land sovereignty says we acknowledge, we renounce our quote right, because we do not have a right to buy and sell Mother Earth.
Right.
It is ours to come and
crucial.
To hold.
On the spiritual, symbolic, metaphysical side, to me, somebody thinking they are entitled to land because they bought it, right? What if that land is not happy because it's parceled?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it used to be this mountain. Now you think you own this little piece of this little square of that mountain, and you're so entitled to be the owner. And did you ever speak to me? Did you ever actually look at the mountain? Did you ever, you know? And to me, it's a congruency thing. When if you're not willing to take a look at that, right? If you say, okay, well, we have to be free, so we need to be food sovereign, so we got to get a land, and who cares about all that spiritual speak to the mountain stuff? Yeah, that's kind of nice. Or yeah, we like that because it's like a cultural adornment. But do we really have the congruency? Because if you really do have the congruency, you know, I'm looking at all the time. You know, there was this stairway in the city of La Paz, right? And I used to notice that when I climbed those stairs, I would get so much more tired than when I would climb other stairs. I'm like, this is weird. What's happening? So I started researching, and I found out that where those stairs are used to be this very sacred waterfall. So that place that used to be so beautiful and sacred got turned into a set of stairs in the city. And so to me, that the place I started speaking with the place, and the place would tell me, I'm just so pissed off. You know, I used to be a sacred place, and now I'm a set of stairs where people piss on because it's an alley, right?
Right.
And that's why I was getting tired. And that's what's happening to so many places around the world, where the land is pissed off. So you can't just, oh, I bought you. So not because I bought you, I'll just do everything will just be happy because I'm going to be doing land restoration. No, there's still that spirit that's pissed off because it's been parceled, because it's been broken into pieces. And are we really going into that world? Are we really speaking to those spirits? Are we really taking that into are we really caring about that? Do we really care?
This is where I bring the elemental spirit. This is why we talk about the elemental spirits, because Mother Nature herself is not pissed off. She's a force that operates on her own cycles, and if we're not part of her cycles, there's consequences. However, these elemental spirits are demanding that we come into harmony with them. And that's what I see, like with the first heat wave in June. There were rumors I heard of the feedlots in Kansas that thousands of cattle were just laying dead. They were piled up. Well, that reminds me of what we did to the bison to get rid of the Indians, right? We white male patriarchal system colonizers just came in and mindlessly, ruthlessly slaughtered them, so that to deprive the Indians, the Native Americans, of their ability to be self-governed and self-regulated. And so the elemental earth spirit keepers who are there to keep Mother Earth for the next 7 generations, for the humans, they are saying, look, we're gonna start exacting a high price if you don't start coming into congruence with us.
Yeah, so that needs to be taken into consideration. But then also, I mean, this is like the metaphysical thing of, oh, if I just buy land, I'll have, everything will be neat and dandy, right? I can be self-sufficient. Right. Yeah. I can be free. I can do all this, and I can solve it by just buying land. So I would tell anyone to consider that. Consider this.
Myself only, right? Yeah. I bought this land for myself and myself only, myself and my family only. Right. And I'm not sharing it with anybody.
Of ownership.
You can come visit.
It's like,
you can come visit me and you can stay, but you can't come live. You can come visit for an overnight.
It's making the land slave, right? I paid for you, so now I'll do anything I want with you, without even asking you or looking into your past or anything. I'll just make use of you because I bought you. So that's one thing to consider, the actual animism behind land. Absolutely. But the other thing is that if we go into the practical side as well, if we want to bring it down to pragmatism, well, same thing happens, where, you know, that's why the Argentinians, I'm not talking about they got, I mean, this land holding was just like thousands of acres. This is like, it's not enclosed. That's great what they're doing. Absolutely. This vast territory that was abandoned and was probably going to be taken over by the agro-industrial complex. And since they're there now, that's not going to happen.
And guarantee that, because they're still quotes leasing it, or they have an agreement with the Catholic Church. And remember, the Catholic Church has the unam sanctum that says it is the vicar of Christ, and it owns everything, and thereby, so if a high up archbishop of that area decides he's selling out to industrial something, that those people are going to be SOL. I hate to say it that way, but they are.
Well, I actually
Because
don't
of
think
the
that would happen.
land enclosure movement. Right? That's, and I'm happy that they got that and that there's such an example. My point of that is not the example, is the fact that the land is enclosed by the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church has no right to enclose that land.
Right. And so, well, that would take us into a very long conversation of the the law behind the lands, the laws of land, and how do you pragmatically, and I think I have some experience with this, because I was involved for many years. I've been involved with indigenous movements in Bolivia, and where we have actually this situation with the land as well, and I've been close to this native nation that is kind of getting this kind of understanding. Hey, they say the Bolivia as a nation is here after we were here, was created after us. So by no means are their laws on top of ours. We were here before, right? So
right.
Our lands are ours, and this has been discussed extensively. It has been even tried to be put into the law. The natives in Bolivia are understanding this, and they're understanding that, hey, this legal system, this country, it's unlawful. So we are not to be subdued by those laws. But then there's the pragmatical part where, for example, the city of Potosí, the ancient, this really old city that got started, where all the silver came out of from Bolivia, the Spanish took out. The whole city is inside of this nation I used to be close to, this indigenous nation, the Cara. And they, it's not like, okay, so this is our native land, so now you have to get out. Well, it's not that simple. How do you de-enclose? How do you reshape everything?
But it starts by not putting your property up for sale. That's how it starts, with individual people not putting up their property for sale anymore, and stopping that. That's how it starts. And we can't go to the whole of, well, we're going to reclaim as indigenous people this whole area of land that has a city on it. No, that's bullshit. That's trying to eat the whole elephant in one bite. It starts with creator, and this is where I am. I am open to my ranch, to receiving now my ranch of my mountain ranch of great excess that has enough food for all my animal villagers, so that I can stop purchasing hay and feed for them, and it has enough housing to support the first 16 male and female student participants of our living self-governance process universitas, because the current land that I'm on doesn't have that, and it needs to rest. It needs rejuvenation, because I've been doing the best I could with where I came from on this journey, but now it needs rejuvenation, and that needs, now I want to work with the land spirits more. And now we're in such a severe drought. It's time to clear out and time to let this land rest, and let's reshape, let's reshape this to bring this land, this 50 acres that I'm on here, to be part of our living self-governance process, universitas and farm villages. But at this point in time, it's like, bring me this, or orchestrate this. And this mountain ranch of mine, I know, is bounded by thousands of acres of wildland that is supposedly claimed by the Pope, but is not, not being kept, tended, interacted with by anyone, because it's because we believe that the U.S. government holds this, and they don't have any right to do that.
Right. So that's critical. Understand.
I've made, right. I've renounced.
Understand natural law. Understand that these created laws are unlawful. Are they are the white man's law.
They're legal under the Uniform Commercial Code, but they're not in harmony with the natural process of life. And there's no laws really that govern. They're all processes. That's why I changed them on the website from laws to processes, because law is a word that's human created in regards to our legal system. That's a farce. But so we go back to the colonists who arrived and were on all shores, whether they were the Spaniards or the French or wherever. They pretended that the land was vacant and open to claim, and they discounted the native indigenous people because they weren't Christian or they weren't Catholic. So they said, let us buy land from you. So, and the native people, the indigenous people, told them, we don't own the land owns us, but you can share this with us. You just have to live in harmony with us. And the colonists ignored this and forced the indigenous people to accept, quotes, gifts as payment, and then they concocted bills of sale based on this practice. So it comes from a place of power, right? I need to be powerful. That's where the whole enclosure movement came from. I'm powerful, I'm wealthy, so I can enclose all this land and just push you guys off of it, and I don't give a shit whether you have enough food to eat or not, as long as I have my private hunting grounds and my 40 acres of grass that I now need a riding lawnmower to mow and keep looking nice, while I keep my cattle in a quarter of an acre lot and have to go buy them hay and grain.
Yeah, and that's, on the pragmatical side, buying land, that's only for those who can do that. I mean, most people, we're never going to get like a lot of people being self-sufficient if everybody has to buy the land to do so. I mean, who can buy land? Not me.
Well, that's why I've renounced the practice of buying land, and at the same time now I'm renouncing the practice of purchasing hay and feed for my livestock, because animals knew how to feed themselves through the winter for years before we ever came along and decided to enclose them, right? And the only reason, another reason for enclosing it, was the Spaniards in California, especially with these vast acreages, because it made them feel more powerful to have so many more sheep and cattle than they could ever possibly use. And it's the same token here, because we come from this scarcity mind frame that says we're not going to purchase meat from, or anything from, someone that doesn't have an excess of it on their table or their shelves. And so therefore it doesn't matter how much of it goes to waste. As long as I see that there's an excess, I'm comfortable with purchasing it. I don't want to go to a farmer and say, okay, I have a family of 4, so that means I need cattle, two young steers to put in my freezer for this winter. That will get me through, and maybe 20 chickens and maybe a pig to have pork and some variety. And it comes from a place of enoughness, knowing that you only need enough to get you by.
Right, so that's awesome what you just pointed out. The fact that this accumulation, this concept of getting rich and having lots, it really comes from a scarcity mindset. I'm so poor that I need so much. It's like, I'm so empty that I need to show up. I mean, if you look at native people here in this continent, we were so over that. It's like that's such a poor mindset of, oh, the only thing that's going to make me feel good enough is owning everybody, owning a whole bunch of stuff. A lot more than that I need.
Owning, being the dominator of, being the perpetrator of evil deeds on unliving deeds is owning. This concept of owning and we're renouncing that. Our living system, self-governance universitas, self-governance process universitas, we're renouncing that. Among our renunciations is this need to own anything. We are earth keepers. We are mu keepers, metal, earth, wood, and water keepers. Metal, earth, metal, the metal element means oil, minerals, everything that's part of the soil that people are exploiting to make money of, that people who are animating dead corporations are exploiting to make money off of. We are keepers of that. We don't need 10,000 gallons of oil piled up in our yard in case something goes wrong, right? We don't need to extract more than we can use, and it will still be there next year.
Yeah.
Right? The bank of it in the earth will still be there next year when we need, after the winter's over. It's the same thing, you know, with animals, with water, with everything. When the cycle of winter is through and spring comes again, everything pops to life, and it's all renewed. Just like when we go to sleep, our energy in ourselves is renewed every day. But we don't trust this. This is where so many of the gurus are still promoting a finite earth, a finite earth, a finite earth. Mother Earth, she's going to run out of stuff. Do you run out of energy, Julian?
No.
Yeah, you do. We do. We go to sleep and we renew our energy. This is what the winter cycle is for.
Yeah.
Right? It's for coming to minimal functioning.
As a rest, but it's not like just last night it happened to me that I had so much energy, and it's like, oh, I need a rest, but it's not like I am out of energy. I have lots of energy. Right,
and this is what I'm saying. Mother Earth's sources are actually not as finite as we think they are. That's coming from a scarcity mindset that says I've got to harvest now and deprive everyone else of everything because I'm the only important thing on this earth.
Yeah, it's like it's like breathing. I mean,
it is. Whereas
if you breathe a whole lot more, like right away, is that gonna get you more air later on?
Yeah, no, exactly. Right. It's like catch up. Also the concept of catching up on sleep. You don't never catch up on sleep.
Yeah. Or I'm gonna stuff myself with 5 meals so I can go 5 days without eating. It's like that doesn't work that way. Life the earth doesn't work that way.
No, this is part of a living system, is constant self-renewal, constant self-remaking. And this is what the dead earth hologram system has no concept of.
Yeah.
They can't begin to imagine.
You know, I think that what happened with the freedom cell people here if I bring it down to, and I did in my mind, brought it down to, so what's their insecurity really? They're not trying to accumulate stuff. They're not really, I mean, they do have this thing that they themselves haven't thought of deep, which is the ownership thing about the land, right? Because I was telling them, you should go out and there's other ways to do this that is not buying a piece of land. First of all, nobody has the money, right? So just getting that money is like, okay, nobody's gonna get that money. That's on the pragmatical side. But then I was thinking, what are their insecurities? And it comes down to, I mean, this ownership thing is, they don't want to own the land because they think they want to feel superior or anything, or they want to feel, no, it's because they believe in the law, in the man's law. They think that having that ownership is going to make him feel have security. Nobody is going to come and kick him out of that land, right? Which is not what happens down in Bolivia, where, I had this, for example, this situation many years ago where this family had this huge piece of land holding, but they weren't using it. It was just left there, this land in the mountains. And since I was looking to go live self-sufficiently somewhere, I talked to them and they're like, oh, we'll they were very interested in me going there on their behalf and working that land. So much that when I didn't do it, when I just forgot about it, or I just kept, didn't attract me, they got really pissed off at me. They were really pissed off because what happened in Bolivia in those years was that the government changed this law thing so that any piece of land that wasn't being used, which is not it's a long discussion to talk about why this is not a good thing, what they did, but they did this, the government did this, where you couldn't have a land just sitting by. I mean, if you had a land sitting by, I mean, this is my land, but you're not doing anything with it. Somebody else can take it, right? Legally, right? So this family was really worried about that. And they probably lost that land because the communities nearby said, hey, these guys are not here. We're going to take the land and we're going to use it. And that's why they wanted me so badly to be there working that land for them or in their name. Yeah. In their name, so that they wouldn't lose the ownership, right? So there you go. I mean, the laws can change, governments can change the law. Having a little piece of paper doesn't entitle you to anything. It doesn't give you that security. That's what I would tell these people, that thing that gives you so much security, but then you got to think about it. I mean, how much work does it really require to come up with that amount of money to buy that land? I mean, if you go through that, and I'm talking about here where people have a lot less money. If you go through that, if you're able to achieve that, of course you're gonna feel like, oh, now this is mine. I worked 20 years to get this.
Right. Now you stay the fuck off my land, right? I'm not gonna share it with you, right? Because it's my land, it's my piece. I paid for it, I own it. I, instead of we own it, we're here to keep this together, to restore, to work with Mother Earth. She can restore herself perfectly fine without our help. She just wants us to work with her on this. Right. And she wants to be unenclosed. She wants, I mean, and here in the US, like my friend Jack was telling me, here in Oklahoma especially, there was a family that had, I guess, a fairly significant amount of acreage, and their kids left the farm, and they, mom and dad got old, and they didn't want the land broken up into 40-acre tracts or 10-acre pieces or 5-acre pieces and sold off piecemeal. So they gave it to the state. So now the state enclosed it as a wildlife management area, and now nobody gets it other than if you want to go hunting. Right now, nobody, now it's quotes owned by the state, and nobody's working with this land. Nobody's interacting with her other than the people who get hunting leases and or get, you know, purchase hunting and fishing permits to go on this land. And so there's millions of acres like this in the US where they just, and I'm not saying they need to be sold, it means mom and pop farms need another option than real estate or giving it to the state. And we are that other option.
And we need people growing, studying at universitas and understanding all of this so that they can free themselves from their mind of needing this ownership, so that they can, all we need is having a group of organized people. Organized
So when I say my mountain ranch of great access, right now I'm saying my mountain ranch of great access because I'm the one visioning a new life, a freshened life, an ancient fresh life, a fresh ancient life of commonly held. But when enough people have come to constitute a village, a ranch village, every single member of that village will own the ranch. They will be mule keepers, and nothing will happen on the ranch significant without everyone's input. That's how the village of Lake Spain is. You know, it's a commonwealth. It's a common, the amount of hectares it encompasses is held in common by everyone in the town. And there's a significant difference in the terrain and the health of the terrain as opposed to the other villages on the other mountains who sold out to corporate, and they don't own the village as a tribe anymore.
Yeah.
So it's not about me. It's my mountain ranch. I'm saying it's my mountain ranch of great excess right now because I'm the only one dreaming this into being in my world. So once other fellow earth travelers of mine stand with me and join me, they will become mule keepers of the same land area and all the wild land surrounding it. We don't need governmental okay to interact with all the wild acres around us. We don't need anyone else's permission because we have Mother Earth's permission and Father Sky.
That's it. You don't need money. You don't need permission. You just need to grow up and stand up for yourself.
and say, look at this 5 acres here that we've been diligently taking care of. Look at the difference between it and all the others that we haven't got to interacting with yet. Now, do you want us to continue or do you want us to stop?
Yeah.
Because, right? And this is what my fellow earth travelers, most of them don't understand, is the system of buying and selling land is going away, and it's all breaking down. And until we've orchestrated and emerged a new system together, we're going to continue repeating. And do we really want to keep repeating slavery over and over and over again?
Right.
I don't. So it starts with unenclosing water, unenclosing land, and unenclosing food.
Yep. That's it. And
because when you think about it, food really is enclosed. It's that when you go to, especially here in Oklahoma, when you go to a grocery store that's reasonable, all you find on the shelves is white processed food. None of it's real. So real food is really enclosed for those who are, quotes, wealthy enough to afford it.
Or wealthy in time or in mind enough to know and grow it yourself.
Well, that's the case, Julian. Wealthy in mind. Everyone that is that, like I have a neighbor that said, oh, I didn't grow a garden this year and I'm so proud of myself for it. That's very poor in mind. That's very, very poor in mind.
Yeah.
Very poor in spirit.
Yeah. Well, that's so awesome that you can share all this. We're 10 minutes over the hour, and yeah. I was gonna ask, what do you think this can take us to for the next conversation?
A couple more governance, self-governance, self-regulation pillars is energy and education. We'll go into that, which means power, energy, okay. Electricity.
Because I was going to start thinking about money and
money.
But what do you? But it's going to take more than one more session. So what do you think the next one should be? Energy and education.
Energy and education, and then we'll go into wellness and money.
Okay, so let's do the E's: energy and education, and invite people, anybody watching that wants to continue how we think about how we share our thoughts, our knowledge, and evolve with this as we do in these conversations. Invite them for next week.
Actually, since we talked today about unenclosing the land and the earth spirits that are demanding our attention, let's talk about the earth elemental spirits next week, and then the following week we'll go into energy and education.
Okay, so these as well, earth elemental spirits.
Yeah.
Okay, I would love to hear what you have to share about that. So we invite people for next week. We're not changing the time, still 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. The video stays in Vimeo. You can watch it anytime. And please let us know if you disagree with something, and let us know what it is. Please give some feedback. Please let us know you're not a bot and you're a real human watching this. And with that said, thank you, Ingrid, and I will see everyone next week.
Yeah. Okay.